Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Ammaar bin Salim. Welcome to another episode of Out Loud with Ammaar. We have effectively run into the season 3. Today is episode 1 of this new season, and I've been joined by a guest who is an author. She is a writer. She writes for Forbes. She is a qualified journalist. I've kept a lot of focus on the word qualified. So I'll tell you why. And we will be talking about journalism as a career. We will be talking about if you can make it big in Pakistan through journalism, and also we'll be talking about personal branding. So thank you very much, Sonya, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Amar, for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you today.
As a matter of fact, I'm also very, very excited because this is a topic that's very close to my heart. मैं जैसे आपको बता रहा था in the very beginning कि मेरा खुद भी background इस तरह से है कि during my bachelor's I had a major in journalism. I also had another major as well, education. मगर मुझे हमेशा से इसके साथ थोड़ा सा inclination ज़्यादा रही है. So we'll speak about that, but we'll be starting with your journey first. Walk us through your early life. Are you from Lahore?
um, yeah, born and raised in Lahore,
Born and raised in
but
Lahore.
family background is a bit scattered, to be very honest. There's a bit of so my grandfather's based in India, my mother's side of the family, my grandmother's family is
Oh,
from Iran, and my
अच्छा.
father's family, they're from Lahore, they're from Pakistan, but their roots go back to Afghanistan. But
Right.
I've born and bred Pakka Lahori, been here ever since I was a baby. Um, yeah, I've been here ever since.
Zabardast. And if I were to ask you, what is that one thing that you love the most about Lahore? मतलब लाहौरी होता है ना उसको मुझे पहले मैंने कभी सुना था कि कराची के लोग ऐसे हैं कि they just wouldn't want to leave their station and would never want to go for even if they find a better opportunity abroad या even in Pakistan. अब मुझे लगता है I feel that about myself कि जब मैं लाहौर आता हूँ जैसे ही जहाज अभी एयरपोर्ट पे भी लैंड होता है like शुक्र अल्लाह ताला का for some reason. So what is that one thing that you love the most about Lahore? मेरे लिए difficult question होगा बताना because I think I love everything.
Bilkul. No, you're absolutely right. I think there's just this thing that, Lahore is just, it just grows on you, and it,
Hmm.
it is one's hometown. I mean, any Lahori would, the first thing they would say is food, but I wouldn't say that because I'm not a meat eater.
Neither
So
am
I'm a
I.
pure vegetarian. So, I mean, but I will tell you what I feel drawn to about Lahore. I feel there are many parts of Lahore which feel like they're contained in time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to those little pockets, especially the walled city, driving
Hmm.
down Mall Road,
Yeah.
you just feel like you're in a time portal. You're back in time. Time slows down. And the biggest thing that I love about the city are the trees, the greenery, the parks. So for me, that is something that I feel like it's very dreamlike, And even though, I mean, we moved to Islamabad about 3.5 years ago, and
Right.
Islamabad's also very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I don't know, I feel like Lahore's the best of both worlds. It has this metropolitan vibe to it, and it has this very old, beautiful charm to it.
Exactly, exactly. बिल्कुल. But how would you say that Lahore has changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years? Now, matlab, a person who would have visited Lahore like back in 2000s, 2005, and visiting Lahore now would be a totally different situation. So how do you think Lahore has changed? Or not only just with regards to the infrastructure, but
Mm.
also, in terms of
Yeah.
people, in terms of culture and arts?
Mm. Absolutely. That's actually a very good question. I think the Lahore that used to exist in the 90s, mid to late 90s and early 2000s, it was a very simple time, number one. I feel there was a sense of community, family
Mm,
values, and a lot
yeah,
of care and concern for each other. That sense of community was there, the utna betna, the empathy for each other, and
yeah.
that hospitality was on another level in that time. I think abhi aake with the political situation, new money, the lack of values,
New
the
money is a
dikhava
problem.
culture. exactly. The dikhava culture has, I think, eroded those beautiful values that we used to have. Everything is paisa, dikhava,
Hmm.
whether it's in weddings, whether it's in accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
wo depth nahi reh gayi hai. It's like people are functioning at a very surface level,
Superficial level. Bilkul.
very superficial level, exactly. So I think that's something that's happened. However, there have been some beautiful changes as well, particularly regarding art and culture. I think as the socio-political landscape has changed in the city, in the country, because obviously no man, no city is an island. Everything is affected by everything.
Yeah.
I think as a result, what's happened is the new generation has, and I feel this the world over. I think Generation Z and Generation Alpha are really going to change the course of this world. And as a result, I really feel a portion of the millennial generation and Gen Zs, they have really taken on art and culture into a beautiful direction. They're
Mm-hmm.
integrating technology with their roots. And I
Yeah.
feel abhi naya generation mein there is that quest to find one's identity, and it's not
Mm.
really finding as such a mar. It's taking it on with a lot of pride and being like, this is what it means to be a Pakistani, and I wear my flag, I wear my identity with immense pride.
Yeah.
I remember during the Musharraf era when the media industry completely exploded in the sense that TV channel licenses, new radio channel licenses were
Mm-hmm.
given out like chanas. It really helped. It really helped the media landscape, and
Yeah.
I think इतना वो influx हो गया था of Western media and Western culture and values कि we totally lost it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my generation really floundered. But
Hmm.
now with Generation Z, we have come right back. Our movies are now getting selected for, well, not selected for the Oscars, but they're going to those stages where they could bag an Oscar, and we're
Huh,
very close to
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Our musicians have these amazing platforms like Spotify. They're availing social media so well. They're doing incredible collaborations.
Hmm.
There's just so much that we're doing vis-a-vis art and culture, and with art and culture, this new wave, a new identity for this country is being formed. So I find that very exciting.
Yeah, these are exciting times. जिस तरह आपने
Yeah.
बताया कि या मतलब पहले इस तरह से नज़र नहीं आता था एंड एज अ मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट वंस अगेन आई डू रिमेम्बर आई रिकलेक्टेड टाइम जहाँ पे आपको अपने कल्चर का पता ही नहीं होता था किसी टाइम पे आपको
Yes.
ये पता और
Yes.
प्राइड है ना तो नेक्स्ट स्टेप पे आता है ना कि हाँ कल्चर ऐसा हो जिस पे आप प्राइड ले सकते हो तो अब वो वाला
Yes.
मतलब यस you're absolutely right कि वो वाला टेक्नोलॉजी की इंटीग्रेशन से इट हैज़ बिकम possible for us to let not just Pakistanis know about the culture in Pakistan but also you know uh, project that to the onto the world outside Pakistan as well कि भाई हमारा किस किस्म का है कल्चर एंड व्हाट आर वी रियली प्राउड ऑफ और ये नहीं कि सिर्फ दुनिया में हम ही जो है इम्प्रेस होने के लिए रह गए देयर सो मच दैट वी कैन
Yes.
impress other people with but you
Yeah.
talked about दिखावा as well so आजकल मतलब I think
Yeah.
you're very very correct in saying कि अब दिखावा बन गया दिखावे की वजह से मुझे तो लगता है कि काफी सारा जो हमारा इकोनॉमिक डिफॉल्ट हो रहा है उसकी एक बहुत बड़ी रीजन
जी,
हमारा दिखावा भी है but
जी,
how do you think dikhava
बिल्कुल.
takes root in a society? And how do you think it took root in Pakistan?
I think, I mean, it comes from the Brits, causing
Mm.
that division between our people.
Mm-hmm.
The class differences, the whites and the non-whites. It
Mm.
comes from there, right? If you go
Mm-hmm.
back into history and see how we were ruled, what we were like, the subcontinent before we
Mm.
were ruled by the
Yeah.
British. I mean, I'm not very well read vis-a-vis the subcontinent's history, but whatever I have read, I do know that it has had created a lot of divisions within our
Mm.
people and within, most importantly, Amar, the psyche.
Mm-hmm.
The subcontinent psyche has been, you know, fractured, ever since Khair, I don't want to get into that discussion, the Pak-India debate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what I do want to say is regarding your very good question, the scarcity and why we feel that we are going towards,
Mm,
why dikhawa is so important. Amar, dikhawa is so important in Pakistan because we have a scarcity mindset,
mhm, mhm,
because we feel we are afraid of not having enough.
mm,
You know, there's such a poor distribution of wealth and resources.
mm,
What
mm,
happens? It creates complete imbalance in the country, in a
mm,
society. And
mm,
it's not just a resource driven imbalance, it's a gross emotional imbalance. And when you have an emotional imbalance, you never feel you're enough. And that's why it becomes important to go for that job, go for that partner, go for that family, go for that, you know, project or whatever, where you think you're knocking it out of the park and everyone's looking up at you like you're God or something, you know?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that scarcity mindset. We just feel we're not good enough as people. And that's why, because there's that feeling there's a lack of unity in this country. You know, that is
Mm,
why when Pakistanis go abroad, and khair, I'm making a gross generalization here, but
mhm,
mere view mein ye hai, and I've worked abroad,
mm,
कि, that's why when you know they're Pakistanis working in one organization abroad in the West, there's very little unity between them compared to
mm,
other cultures
yeah,
working under
yeah,
that
yeah,
same organization.
yeah,
Pakistan में ये mindset है Amar, looking over your shoulder to see who's going to attack you.
yeah.
You're all, everyone's so scared
Exactly,
all the time.
exactly, exactly. We are all scared all the time.
Scarcity
Right.
mindset and
Mm,
fear mindset.
mm.
We are all in survival mode.
That's absolutely true. मैंने एक पॉडकास्ट किया था couple of days back with Dr. Pervez Hood भाई, and we were discussing कि भाई एजुकेशन में क्या प्रॉब्लम्स वगैरह हैं. And then I
Yeah,
have a friend who's working with Lesco, and he's also an engineer. तो वो हम उस बारे में बात करना शुरू हो गए. He had some feedback. So we were discussing कि survival की वजह से, हम उस तरह से कभी
yeah,
progress कर ही नहीं पाते, because we just never confident of our abilities. We know कि हम उसमें अपनी abilities को अगर कर भी दें आगे, we won't be able to survive, because there are other people. The challenges are completely different. मतलब मेरा ख्याल है it would
yes,
be a wrong comparison, and I am guilty of making those a lot, of course. लेकिन मतलब I think it would be a wrong comparison to make. कि यार दुनिया
yeah.
इस वक्त वेस्ट में क्या हो रहा है. वेस्ट में फोल्डेबल लैपटॉप्स आ गए हैं. पाकिस्तान अभी तक किधर है लैपटॉप का पता भी नहीं होगा. सिंध के कुछ एरियाज में, इवन पंजाब के कुछ एरियाज में. सो
Yeah,
you're right. और वाकई मतलब दिखावे की ये रीजन देखना, ये रीजन सोचना कि एक इम्बैलेंस है.
yeah,
एक तो फियर है, मगर
yeah,
एक इमोशनल इम्बैलेंस है. Now this is a term that I've never come across before. मगर ये बात सही है, क्योंकि इमोशनल इम्बैलेंस जो है वो रिश्तों में भी नजर आना स्टार्ट हो जाता है. वो आपके ऑफिस में भी नजर आना स्टार्ट हो जाता है. आपके मोहल्ले में भी नजर आना स्टार्ट हो जाता है. एंड देन यू एज अ पर्सन स्टार्ट क्वेश्चनिंग योर एबिलिटीज. क्या एम आई गुड इनफ एंड ऑल. वो तो
yes.
हमेशा से ही जो है वो. But yeah, I think there has to be a way to overcome that, because if you're not fixing our own personality first, how are we ever going to fix the situation around us?
Absolutely. And I think, Amar, I mean, we need to cut ourselves some slack as well. I
Hmm.
think the world has been through a lot of trauma since the COVID
Hmm.
pandemic.
Yeah.
We are going through trauma.
Yeah.
And you know, Amar, I remember bilkul shuru mein when the lockdown had happened, everyone was, you know, scared in their homes, and rightly so. People were dying, dropping like, you know, anything, and you
Hmm.
know, in the most deplorable conditions. Hospitals were full
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
capacity. It was very traumatizing. I mean, we've had loved ones and friends and whatnot who did not make it. Anyway, so the thing is that I remember that time I started doing a lot of introspection because. You know, everyone was going through a tough time, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I really need to develop a healthy sense of self care
Hmm.
and to make sure that I can handle, you know, situations like this, or to go inwards, you know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
to kind of like know thyself, you know.
Hmm.
I became very passionate about that. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, I remember coming across this interview on YouTube, and this psychologist had said that after the lockdown and after the pandemic is going to peter away, the next epidemic going to hit the world is a mental health epidemic, and we aren't even aware of it. Amar, you know this as well. There's not a single person we know, ourselves as well, who
Hmm.
aren't going through some serious dark night of the soul situation. You know, we're still grappling with it. And I think So coming back to, what we were talking about, Abhi, we need to be easy on ourselves.
Yeah.
That's why relationships, the new work model, the
Mm,
new world, the new
mm,
normal is kind of like breaking through everything. Everything has cracks in it now.
mm. Absolutely correct. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल मेरे ख्याल है सेल्फ केयर वाला पॉइंट जो आपने बताया या वी नीड टू cut ourselves some slack. It's very right
Yeah.
क्योंकि वाकई मतलब एंड वही वाली बात है. आई थिंक कोविड इज टू बी blamed a lot for this. It's not just the Russia Ukraine crisis इसकी वजह से ये सारा इकोनॉमिक जो भी हॉरिड इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन चल रही है वो उसको सिर्फ वहाँ ब्लेम नहीं कर सकते. इट्स आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ इट हैज टू डू विद द कोविड सिचुएशन एज वेल एंड वी आर स्टिल गोइंग थ्रू इट. And yes, absolutely correct. I was just watching a video on Facebook about a kid whose mother passed away. His father couldn't work. He has a couple of siblings to look after, and what is he making? तो मतलब वो जाहिर बात है when your pocket is not heavy enough to bear the expenses of today's world, then absolutely that is going to translate into mental problems. So you're very right in that. But Sonia, let's talk about journalism. So you, as I mentioned, you're a qualified journalist. The reason I say it कि मुझे बहुत सारे जो है ना unqualified journalists जो है ना वो नजर आते हैं. Everybody is a journalist. मेरा ख्याल है एक बड़ा easy profession है करने को, लेकिन जब आप करते हैं वो पता चलता है कितना मुश्किल है. But how did you decide to go to Columbia? Because your bachelor's is from Lahore School of Economics and that was a BBA, right? So the business के जो students होते हैं, how did you decide कि मैंने journalism करना है?
Amar, even Abhibi, if you ask me, Acha, what did you study in your finance degree? Or if you ask me any finance related question, I would just come across as a total bimbo.
It's pretty
To
much
be
the same for
very
me.
honest.
I'm MBA in finance and marketing. Marketing I can manage. Finance मुझे नहीं याद होगा.
Exactly. So मेरा plan था actually कि मैंने NCA जाना है, but couldn't go to NCA. My mother was like, please go and do a proper degree and not be
Yeah.
a unemployed bum of an artist. So
हाँ.
I, I did that degree so out of force, really, not out of choice.
अच्छा.
And
LSE
how did I
वाली जो
come to
BBA वाली. Right. अच्छा.
exactly. So how did Columbia come about? Amar, bilkul shuru se I've been writing since I was 9 years old. Then I started getting published when I was 13.
ठीक
So
है.
just it was a very organic process, and I think destiny had a real role to play in this because, family members kind of encouraged it. Primarily, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother, teachers, things like that. So it was destiny. But I think the seed was planted in my mind in my first year at Law School of Economics when I did an internship at Daily Times for 4 or 5 months
Right,
with
right,
their
right.
Sunday magazine.
अच्छा
And
अच्छा
that's when
अच्छा
I
अच्छा
knew.
अच्छा.
I was only 19, 20 at the time, and that's when I knew, Mark, कि मैंने बस ये करना है. So what happened was 6 years after that, 5 years after that, I was talking to my mother and I was like, I really feel I want to do a master's now, because I had been working for about 4 or 5 years after Lahore School of Economics. I'd been working since I was, 19 anyway. And I just thought, okay, I didn't feel very confident in myself. She said, okay, let's sit down and research journalism schools in the world. So two names came up, NYU and Columbia. And my mom was like, you should go for Columbia. And then I read up a little bit about it. And I was like, yeah, this is the school I want to go to. I applied the following year, got admission, got a $10,000 scholarship, but couldn't even afford my plane ticket. I was like, oh God, now what do I do? So I wrote to them. Yeah, they deferred my admission for a year. And then in the second year, even during that time, I had no hope at all. I was reaching out to God knows how many people. It was so embarrassing. And then
My
during that
God.
time, yeah. And I was like, and I remember there was this lovely person, a journalist. He must have been in his 60s at the time. His name was Josh. And I kept writing to him and I said, Josh, please help me. This is my dream school. I want to come to Columbia. So he helped me a lot. He gave me very good leads as well, funding agencies and scholarships, other scholarships that I could apply to. I didn't get them. Then a dear friend of mine was like, Sonia, apply for the Fulbright. She had gotten the Fulbright the year prior and gotten to go to Columbia. So I said, okay. So I applied, put my wish list down. Okay, I'd love to. My top school is Columbia, then NYU, and then I gave another one in San Francisco, I think. And yeah, I got the Fulbright, and really, again, destiny, as luck would have it, as God willed, I got into Columbia, and it was like a dream come true. And
Wow.
that's how it
Awesome,
happened.
awesome. I mean, I feel like this is something that many of the students in Pakistan and developing countries go through. Because even if there is a scholarship that partially covers their expenses, what about the
Yes,
lodging expenses? What about the airfare? What about the remainder of the tuition fee? And I think
yes.
it you had it very clear in your heart कि मैंने ये करना है. So that's the reason you reached out to so many people, and one of them eventually helped you. Even one of your friends जिसने आपने Fulbright का बताया, and so you
बिल्कुल.
made it. But then now another question is related to Colombia, of course.
Mhm.
How do you think? And I understand that you wouldn't have the best knowledge with regards to what's being taught at universities in Pakistan to journalism students. But
Yeah.
how would you compare a the journalism degree being offered in the West and the journalism degrees being taught in Pakistan? How would you compare the two? एंड उसका शायद इस तरह से भी कि देखो, अगर आप जाते हो मार्केट के अंदर, हम कहते हैं यार एक यूनिवर्सिटी का ग्रेजुएट है, किसी यूनिवर्सिटी का
Mhm.
ग्रेजुएट है, पढ़ा तो दोनों ने सेम हुआ.
Mhm.
सो हाउ वुड यू
Mhm.
सी के यार एक बंदा जो कि फील्ड रिपोर्टर है और वो कहीं पे किया है, वो एक कोलंबिया से है, एक पाकिस्तान से या इंडिया से, हाउ वुड यू कंपेयर द टू?
Okay, actually, that's a really good question. And I think that was a turning point for me when I realized what was going wrong in
Mm.
Pakistan when I was studying at Columbia. It was really eye opening for me. So I'll give you an
Mm-hmm.
example that really shifted my perspective. After our, first couple of days settling in all of that, international students, we were sitting. So we were a batch of 250 kids, and we were then further, broken down into batches of 17 and 20 students per class. So
Right.
our professor at the time for my batch, our batch of 17, was Professor Wald, the late Professor Wald. He had been with ABC News for like 2 or 3 decades. He had launched Nightline on ABC. I mean, very well established American journalist.
Right.
And
Right.
I remember we were all sitting in a circle in the classroom, and he was sitting in the center with his assistant professor, Merrill Perlman, another incredible human being. And he was asking us a very general question about what was happening in the country at the time, some political event, whatever, and he wanted our perspective. And there I was sitting, this fresh off the boat, Pakistani student, total idiot. And I was just sitting over there, and I was trying to formulate my thoughts, Amar, but I was like, I don't have an opinion. And I was sitting right at the end, and then he came right to me, said, Sonia, what do you think? And I was shell shocked. I was mute. I didn't know what to say. And I said, Professor, I don't have an answer yet. And he said, next time I ask you a question, I want you to be prepared. You need to have an
You
opinion.
better have an answer next time.
And that's, yeah. And Mark, that changed my perspective, and it made me realize that we aren't taught to have opinions. We aren't taught to explore opinions in the classroom
Yeah. We
in
aren't taught
Pakistan.
to even question our teachers, our parents.
Our teachers, exactly. Chup karke baith jao.
Yeah. मतलब,
Things like that.
how
Or,
come you have an opinion on
you
something, like seriously? So from the get go वो चीज develop ही नहीं हुई, तो वो नजर आएगी आगे जाके.
Bilkul, exactly. So that's when I realized, Amar, what that did for me. So that 1 year accelerated master's program, it made me fall in love with teaching. And the day I
अच्छा.
graduated, yeah, the day I graduated, Minika, and I was on the plane back to Pakistan, and I said, I want to start teaching. And then I started teaching at 2 or 3 universities, and then I did workshops and all. And even Abhi, if, ever an opportunity arises part-time or workshop
Mm-hmm.
related, I
Mm-hmm.
don't say no. I'll do
Because
it
you're a teacher.
because I feel, Amar, young Pakistanis today are parched for teachers who make them feel like individuals rather than this factory belt, of students and ye
Yeah.
homework, ye homework, ye homework,
Yeah.
and everyone is the same,
वो मुझे याद आ गया इससे
Children,
गाना, वो you would also remember पिंक फ्लॉयड का एक गाना होता था कि we don't need no education, another brick in the wall.
we don't need no thought control.
या और उसमें वो सब मुझे याद है, कन्वेयर बेल्ट होती थी, उसमें सब स्टूडेंट्स जा रहे हैं और एक ही उससे गुजार रहे हैं और एंड में कीमा भी निकल रहा है. तो well, that was a very horror depiction, but I think it's quite true in the sense, because he was also trying to explain how we think and how we, what sort of individuals we become at the end of the day, और आप किस तरह से contribute करें
Yeah.
अपनी society को.
And Amar, because of that, because we're silenced in our homes, don't question adults. And yes, it's good we're taught those values. Don't speak up against your parents, be polite, be
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah, all of that. But I'd say our umbrella problem is that in this country, हमारे society में इतना ज़्यादा emotional suppression है from our homes. Even though, being taught to respect our elders, those values are very important, no doubt about it. No one wants to adopt that Western culture of being booted out of the nest when you're 18 and then
Yeah.
booting your parents into old people's homes. I mean, we function as very different sort of cultural identities.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do feel that घर में emotional suppression बहुत है. Children aren't able to really voice their fears, their thoughts, their wants, and then it's happening, it's replicated in the classroom. And that's why, Amar, I really feel in Pakistan, in my generation particularly, the now early 40s, late 30s, I really feel we end up, for the lack of a better word, breaking down, and we realize that, wow, I've had depression for so many years, or I have anxiety, or I have XYZ psychological thing that I need to work on. And it all comes from being suppressed, being told not to voice your thoughts, your mind, your wants, And I really do feel, again, coming back to education, coming back to the classroom, even if children have toxic family lives or disturbed emotional family lives, the classroom can heal the child. And that is something that I'm very passionate about. Really, the teacher becomes the destiny changer for the child.
It's the difference that you can create in one student's life.
Yes.
I also believe I'm a lifelong teacher. मुझे लगता है, just because of what I was able to see, because I was also able to track the journey of a student who came to me in a certain year and then spent a couple of months with me, and then I could see कि उस पे impact क्या बन रहा है and how his or her personality changed. वो कहते हैं ना, जैसे मतलब आपकी बात से मुझे याद आ रहा है कि we're so suppressed and we're taught to live in a constant state of fear. मुझे उससे याद आ रहा है कि there was this saying that I had come across कि your best life lives on the other side of your hardest fear, of your biggest fear.
Wow.
तो मुझे exactly यार मतलब बड़ा एक सही आपने किया कि fear, I don't know why we're so fearful. पता नहीं इसकी क्या reason, but yes, everybody is. And you just cannot ever reach your potential if you're always fearful.
Exactly. And I think, Amar, because one is fearful so much of everything all the time, what happens is that fear becomes an addiction, and two, it becomes safe.
Yeah.
So it's like better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, how you see this.
Yeah.
So that's why we stay stuck in a rut.
So, Sonya, it was a 1-year program. Then why didn't you stay in the US? Why did you come back to Pakistan?
So basically, वो Fulbright का condition है that you have to come back for 2 years, fulfill your duty, give back to the country, पूरा उनका clause है. But at the time, I remember there were a couple of other Fulbrighters who were moaning about having to come back.
Yeah.
मगर मैं बहुत excited थी. I was like, yes, I'm going back home. I couldn't wait to go back because New York was a very tough city to live in. हाँ, हम जो Hollywood movies में देखते हैं, Times Square, ये वो, it's amazing. But real New York living is very grimy, crazy, and it's a tough place to survive. तो खैर मैं बड़ी खुश थी. I was like, I'm going back to family.
That's वो लाहौरिया वाला जो feeling होती बंदे की, मैं तो पहुंचूं ना लाहौर वापस.
Literally, it was that, huh? So, then I came back. I worked here for a couple of years, and then I got a job opportunity in Dubai, Ammaar, in 2015, and I went for about a year. And that was great, but I just always had this tug to come back to Pakistan, to serve the country, to work here, to live here. I never wanted to leave.
वो loyalty वाला बंदे के अंदर आ जाता है ना किसी न किसी point पे.
बहुत. बहुत ज्यादा। ऑनेस्टली मेरे दोस्त वो समझते हैं कि मैं पागल हूँ, एंड आई थिंक मैं थोड़ी पागल हूँ वैसे।
अच्छा, आजकल के दौर में से कोई बंदा भी समझेगा, मतलब पीपल स्टार्ट जजिंग यू, राइट? तुम पाकिस्तान से बाहर नहीं जा रहे यार, देख नहीं रहे क्या हो रहा है?
एग्जैक्टली, बट कौन रह जाएगा इफ वी ऑल एंड अप लिविंग?
हाँ।
व्हाट्स गोना हैपन? हाउ कैन यू, it's like, how can you leave a parent, you know? I feel for me
हम्म।
it's like that, you know?
अच्छा, पता है इस तरह से हुआ भी करता था, लोग सोचा करते थे, आई रिमेम्बर कि यार
Mm.
नहीं। और अब वो चीज़ नजर कम आती है, बहुत कम नजर आती है कि यार हाँ पाकिस्तान, नोबडी ओन्स पाकिस्तान, राइट? इवन वी डोंट ओन
Yeah,
पाकिस्तान। हम में से काफी सारे लोग
true.
हैं इस तरह के, बड़े कम लोग हैं जो कह रहे होंगे यार मैं पाकिस्तान से बाहर नहीं जा रहा, जस्ट बिकॉज आई केयर फॉर द
Hmm.
कंट्री, आई लव दिस कंट्री, दिस कंट्री
Hmm.
हैज गिवन मी सो मच। ये कभी हम बात नहीं करते कि यार इस कंट्री ने भी तो कुछ दिया है हमें।
Yes,
अभी मतलब अगर हम ना कह
yes.
रहे होते, यू वुड हैव गॉन टू कोलंबिया, यू, मैं नहीं पहुंचा होता वहां पे जहाँ मैं आज हूँ, अगर मेरे इसमें हमारे मुल्क का बहुत बड़ा रोल है।
Very true, very true. And not only that, Amar, you know, I think we're so, um, I think we have been trained to look at the negative for so long, thanks to
या
the media and
या
thanks to just the overall, the collective opinion,
हम्म
that we fail to see the good things happening in this country as well. You
हम्म
know, in different business sectors, individuals who are doing very good work.
हम्म
So it's very easy to kind of like demonize the country and be like, you know, it is a sinking ship and you better jump.
या
But there are a lot of people who have sacrificed so much and who are continuing to sacrifice
या
every single day for this country, you know?
एग्जैक्टली। अब मैं ऐसे में कभी सोचता हूँ, तो आपकी बात से मुझे एहसास हो रहा है कि वी हैव डीमोनाइज्ड द कंट्री सो मच,
Yeah,
इंडिया, बिकॉज आई मीन आई गिव अ लॉट ऑफ इंडिया रेफरेंसेस, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि वी बोथ गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस एट द सेम टाइम, और हमारी
yeah,
उनकी जर्नी जो है टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट वाज प्रीटी सिमिलर, कल्चर्स भी काफ़ी
yeah.
सिमिलर हैं।
Hmm,
लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम मैं देखता हूँ कि जब इंडिया ने अ कपल ऑफ इयर्स बैक, यू वुड रिमेंबर, एक बड़ी मैसिव
hmm.
कैंपेन की थी, इनक्रेडिबल इंडिया। एंड मतलब
Yes,
आज तक वो मेरे ज़हन में, इट्स स्टिल बजिंग, इनक्रेडिबल इंडिया, इंडिया, इनक्रेडिबल इंडिया, लाइक। और पाकिस्तान में वो
yes,
नहीं कर सकते, मतलब वो अपने मुल्क को ग्लोरीफाई कर देते हैं, मतलब कोई भी आप अगर टिकटॉक पे देख लो या आप कोई मीम देख लो, आर यू फ्रॉम इंडिया, आर यू फ्रॉम इंडिया, लाइक मतलब द वे दे हैव प्रोजेक्टेड देमसेल्व्स, देयर कल्चर, despite knowing
yes.
that they probably have bigger societal problems than us, फिर भी।
Yes. Amar, that's actually such a beautiful point you've mentioned because I remember 2021 May, I walked into Said Book Bank. I was writing a book in those days and I needed
Mm,
some, reference books to kind of like get inspired by. So I
right.
went to the coffee table section in the bookshop, Amar,
Yeah.
and I started looking at our coffee tables books from Pakistan. Ek pura row, they were just pictures of these, you know, gharib log, gray colors,
Mm,
black, depressing, poverty, filthy streets. I
mm,
mean, it was so depressing. And then you'd see these international coffee table book titles, India, Nepal, you name it, which were bright colors,
mm,
vibrant, talking about their art and culture, not talking about the sadness and
mm.
the overall political, social political situation. You're absolutely right. We package ourselves as
So
bacharas.
bad, exactly. मुझे लगता है
कि
अमेरिका हैज
पूरा
ग्रोन ऑन द फैक्ट दैट दे आर गुड मार्केटर्स, दे हैव बैंक्ड ऑन देयर मार्केटिंग स्किल्स सो मच, और मुझे लगता है अब इंडिया भी वही करना शुरू हो गया है। डज दैट मीन कि इंडिया के पास प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं है? आई बिलीव दे हैव बिगर प्रॉब्लम बिकॉज दे हैव अ बिगर पॉपुलेशन एज वेल, एंड दुनिया की मेरे ख्याल है पहली दूसरे नंबर पे या तीसरे नंबर पे बिगेस्ट पॉपुलेशन उनकी है, जो कि हमारा और
या
उनका जो है ना, मतलब डिफरेंस बाय माइल्स है, आईड से। एंड
या
ऑफ कोर्स, बट अगेन दे आर गुरुज इन प्रोजेक्शन। हम उनकी बुक्स पढ़ते हैं, हम उनके
यस
राइटर्स को पढ़ते हैं। और फिर
यस
अगेन मैंने इस पे कुछ देर पहले आई रिमेम्बर वीडियो बनाई थी कि वी आर नॉट गुड एट ब्रांडिंग आवरसेल्व्स, वी आर नॉट गुड एट ब्रांडिंग आवर कंट्री। जब मैं पाकिस्तान से बाहर जाता हूँ, यू नो इट्स सो हार्ड, एंड ऑफ कोर्स इट वुड बी फॉर यू एज वेल, टू जस्ट लेट पीपल नो दैट यू आर फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान, लाइक मतलब
एग्जैक्टली
व्हाट्स रॉन्ग इन दैट यार? आप लेकिन
एग्जैक्टली
वो
आई
पीछे
रिमेम्बर
है ही नहीं ना।
Bilkul Amar. I remember, I think 2009 or beginning of 2010, some
हम्म
Times Square bomber had just been nabbed by the police. He was
हम्म
about to blow up Times Square, some
हम्म
Pakistani dude. And I
राइट
remember in my dorm room, there was this girl and also South Asian, not from Pakistan, fair. Well, okay, she was from India. And we were in the kitchen. We were in the kitchen cooking together, and she looked at me. She was like, "Are all Pakistanis like this?" I said, no, they're not.
She had the
You know,
audacity of saying that. I mean, but
it was
what could
horrible.
you do?
Exactly. But it's unfortunate now, you know, there's a skewed perception of us internally and a
Hmm.
skewed perception of us externally as well.
Externally.
And look at what we're up against.
Absolutely. Absolutely. बिल्कुल सही बात है.
Yeah.
I will still say that you responded to her in a very calm manner. मेरा ख्याल है इमोशनल रश नहीं जो है ना मुझे कर देना था कि मतलब do I look like a bomber to you? क्योंकि if मतलब because she made a generalization in and she
I know.
crafted it into a question. But चलें ठीक है मेरा ख्याल है
Yeah.
that was the best way to handle that question at that time.
Yeah.
But अच्छा सोनिया हम branding की बात करते हैं and I'll bring
Yes.
you back to journalism but let's talk about branding as well. So I said
Yeah.
कि we both discussed कि Pakistan जो है is not good at branding ourselves and I'd say that's for a lack of a creative nature. Let's be blunt
Yeah.
about it. मुझे लगता है कि पाकिस्तान में लोग सोचते ही नहीं है and one of the hardest things to do in life is to be a hard
Yeah.
thinker. Think about it. We just take
Yes.
information, we process it and we just send it off. एंड मुझे लगता है कि लोग भी पर्सनली ब्रांड नहीं कर पाते सो डू यू थिंक पर्सनल ब्रांडिंग चलो मुल्क की ब्रांडिंग तो अलग बात है बट डू यू थिंक पर्सनल ब्रांडिंग फॉर प्रोफेशनल्स इज समथिंग दैट्स नीडेड do you think people who are in their late 30s early 40s mid 40s about 50s do you think they can still start working on their personal brand if they don't even have a LinkedIn account?
Okay, very good question. But first, I just want to tackle it, okay, why we're not doing personal branding.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, we have an entire concoction of issues we're up against, no doubt. Suppression, the fear factor, all of that. Then, added to that, Amar, there's shame. There's shame in talking about one's accomplishments. There's shame in promoting oneself. That's something we'll get into some other time, but 110%. I think in this day and age, if you don't promote your work, Amar, your sacrifice, your life's work, the people you're covering as a journalist, as a writer, jo bhi hai, the art, the sphere you're functioning in, you're not doing justice to it. You're not doing justice to your identity as a Pakistani, to the country. You must promote your work. So I don't agree with this whole notion of, oh, I shouldn't be tooting my own horn. You should toot your own horn. Because look at the legacy that, number one, you should think about the legacy you're leaving behind. You'll be encouraging people to do exactly the same thing. And you'll also be sharing your life's journey with them.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
young
Yeah.
Pakistanis, over 60% of the population is under
Hmm.
the age of 30. They need people like you. They need the
Yeah.
40-year-olds, the 50, 60, 70-year-olds to sit them down and be like, beta, this is how I did it. These
Exactly.
are the ropes. This is how you can do
Absolutely.
it. Kids need that today. And to answer your other question, I think having a social media presence is so important, Amar. It is so important. Have that LinkedIn account, have that Twitter account, use Twitter for good, use Instagram for good. Use it as an online portfolio. You're, mashallah, doing such a great job with your podcasts. Promoting your work. You have to also, and you do this. You're bringing your personality out as well. You're talking about things you've seen and experienced. And you
Hmm.
never know, maybe that one motivational
Hmm.
post that you put up about some life experience of yours in work or in your personal struggle, you
Yeah.
don't know how it's helping someone. We shouldn't be
Absolutely.
secretive about our lives anymore. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying hang your dirty laundry out there for the
Hmm.
world to see.
Hmm.
Put it out there with the intention it'll help someone who's suffering, because everyone
Hmm.
is psychologically, emotionally really broken these days.
Hmm.
People need to learn the tools of how to survive and how to survive really well.
Exactly. And the same personal branding as a tool to survive. That's a new way, that's a
Yeah.
new way of looking at this whole concept. कि यार मतलब I have to survive, so I have to brand myself. और उसके अलावा भी मतलब do it for somebody else. If you're not doing it for
Do it for
yourself, do it for
someone.
somebody else. Maybe somebody else could take some motivation from that and do something better.
Absolutely. And do you want to leave this world with a whisper? Leave with a bang. have your online presence, have your portfolio out there, have your videos out there. It's really funny that I'm saying all this because I used to be very private about my accomplishments. And even now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I struggle a little bit. Like my close friends tell me, even though I've changed it a lot and it may come across as if I'm really like all over the place on social media, but now I've started not holding back. If
Mm-hmm.
someone approaches me for an interview, but Amar, when you approach me, my default reaction was like, "Nee, I can't do it," But now I've realized that you should do it. You should
Mm-hmm.
do it because life, like I'm 40 years old now, and I feel like I have things to share with younger
Mm-hmm.
Pakistanis and maybe even
Mm-hmm.
older Pakistan, older people, not
Yeah,
Pakistan,
yeah,
just
yeah,
generally, who could learn something from what I've done.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
Like when you reached out to me after my last podcast interview, that
Mm-hmm.
was the first time in my life I spoke about my identity and my family
Mm-hmm.
background. And that's something I've
Mm-hmm.
carried with a lot of shame of not being
Mm-hmm.
Pakistani enough.
Not being
Once that
Pakistani
podcast
enough.
was, yeah, and but yahi baat hai Amar, once that podcast was released, something in me released as well. That shame left me,
Wow.
you
This,
know?
what can happen to someone and then someone's life if they just start speaking about it? अब वही वाली
Exactly.
बात है
There's
ना,
nothing,
we just prefer
yeah,
staying depressed because we just don't know what's on the other side. क्या हो सकता है? How can we turn the situation around if we just open up about it?
exactly.
तो वो इमोशंस भी वो हमने घर में भी वही चलो आई थिंक वी वर amongst the blessed ones जहाँ पे we had brilliant relationship with our parents. Alhamdulillah, we could talk to them
Yeah,
about different situations.
mashallah.
Even about the matters which not many people would converse with their parents about. But
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah, we had that privilege. बाकी तो
mashallah.
I have come across my friends जहाँ पे मुझे बताते हैं कि their whole lives just went by और 30-40 साल हो गए हैं और they had no connection with their parents. तो वो हैं या वो नहीं हैं उनका मतलब आप उनसे
Yeah.
बात नहीं कर सकते उस बारे में. और वो आई थिंक वो it's a generational problem. It's continuing in the society. And वो होता है ना जैसे कि एक पेरेंट ने आके एक टाइम पे उसको ब्लॉक करना है for the
Mm.
child to have a better life. तो मेरा ख्याल है वो किसी पॉइंट
Mm.
पे फैमिलीज में ऑफ कोर्स हो रहा होता है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है हमारी सोसाइटी ने उसको बहुत ज्यादा हिंडर
Mm.
किया उस चीज को.
Exactly. And Amar, as a result, have you noticed something with your friends or acquaintances or just generally that, the people then end up reaching a point where they feel very resentful towards their
Yeah,
parents
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
many things
yeah,
where
yeah,
because they
yeah.
haven't found any relief, any closure with the
Hmm.
baggage the
Hmm.
parents have dumped
Yeah,
on them
yeah, yeah,
and what
yeah.
they have had to endure. So it's their baggage and their parents' baggage. And you're
Hmm.
right, the generational trauma is not cut. It
Hmm.
just perpetuates,
Yes, it perpetuates. Bilkul, bilkul. Absolutely correct. So, Sonia, taking you towards the
Mhm.
end of our podcast now,
Yes.
how do you see कि आगे जर्नलिज्म का फ्यूचर क्या होगा पाकिस्तान में? मतलब मुझे सबसे पहले तो मेरा ख्याल है there's this one pressing concern that I wanted to talk to a seasoned journalist about कि देखें ये बात जैसे हमने पहले भी कह रहे थे कि पाकिस्तान में and I think I can be very open about it. So people who
Hmm.
either own news channels, who own
Hmm.
newspapers, radio channels, they are the ones who can still make a profit, who can still make a sizable amount. People who
Yeah.
are anchors, I think they still have a shot at it. But the ones who are
Yeah.
reporting, the ones who are editing the final stuff, जो भी आता है आपके पास और जो भी बाकी support staff है, I don't think they can make good bucks in Pakistan. And I say that from experience, and I just can't name the organization I worked at, but I could see because that was the best English newspaper. It probably still is the best English newspaper. I was working on the in the TV side of the organization, so I could see, यार अगर इस बंदे ने इतना technical skill होने के बाद, he's just taking what 15,000-16,000 rupees. A reporter might be taking 29,000-30,000 rupees. So that was back 8 years back. आज भी मेरा ख्याल है the situation wouldn't have changed by a lot. So आज 55-60,000-70,000 रुपए लेके जा रहे होंगे, which is pretty much the same 12,000 rupees अगर हम उसको कर लें आज भी equate कर लें. So do you think people can still make it big in journalism?
So the thing is, Amar, I think media houses, we have to talk about, they have a responsibility vis-a-vis journalist trainings, reporter trainings. Let me give you a small example. जब कोई हादसा होता है पाकिस्तान में, नेचुरल डिजास्टर या बम ब्लास्ट, रिपोर्टर क्या करता है? बेचारा रिपोर्टर वो भागते हुए जाता है विक्टिम के पास और कहता है
Yeah.
आप कैसे महसूस कर रहे हैं?
Yeah.
भाई, I've lost everything. How the hell do you think I'm feeling?
Absolutely.
Seriously, right? It's shocking. It's hilarious and it's shocking, but it's also so depressing. You're absolutely right. I think a majority of these media houses are doing a complete injustice to the field and the power of media.
Mm.
All they care about is the ratings, the profits, the ad spots. That's it. Otherwise, honestly, Amar, they don't give a shit about the industry. They
Mm.
don't care about best practices. They don't care about the ethics of journalism.
Yeah.
They don't care about yellow journalism and how to combat yellow
Yeah.
journalism,
Yeah.
especially now with AI and how AI can
Mm.
manipulate video,
Deep
sound, you
fake.
name it, right?
Mm.
I remember I was working at an organization and also quite well known, and the kind of people I'd meet, incredible kind of, those old school kism ke Pakistanis,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
well spoken, great
Mm.
family, khandani log,
Mm.
hard working khandani log. Same thing, unki salaries zyada se zyada, 20-25 हजार.
Yeah.
I remember, disgusting pan stained staircase. The elevator
Uh,
had been conked out for years. One of the people I was working with in my department, I've forgotten his name now, but he had a heart condition and he had to walk like every day 4 or 5 flights of stairs. And that used to be so much exertion on him, on his body. And I remember back then thinking, I was in my 20s, I was just thinking, what is this? They don't really
yeah.
care. They
Yeah.
don't care about their people. Walk into any of these, into any of these newsrooms, these
Mm.
publications.
Mm.
I mean, floor to ceiling, filthy, dusty folders. उनका archive system है ही नहीं.
है ही नहीं.
So even the system, the media, the journalism system, how they're filing their work, how they're archiving it, the system is flawed. It's archaic. It's so backward. But sorry, I've totally lost track of
No, I think
what
these
your
are all
original.
the situations that we have seen. I mean,
Yeah,
these are all the sites we have also come across. And मेरा ख्याल है this was one of the reasons I
yeah,
decided not to go for it, because I was like, यार इसमें तो कुछ मैं I won't be able to make my ends meet. बड़ा मसला हो जाएगा. Survive करना मेरे लिए मसला हो जाएगा. How am I ever gonna support my family with a meager amount that I'd be making from this? लेकिन मुझे उसमें ये बात लगी कि यार जर्नलिस्ट के साथ तो चलो जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो कर रही है सो कर रही है, जर्नलिस्ट भी रह रहे हैं उसी में, वो भी नहीं चेंज
yes.
कर सकते.
Because Amar, pata kya, they don't have, no one's opened their mind, no one's
Yeah.
planted that seed in their
Yeah.
mind. They can get onto Fiverr, Upwork, they
Yeah.
can have an online profile and start pitching themselves to international clients and start earning in
Absolutely.
dollars.
Absolutely.
Someone needs to do
Absolutely.
that. And I think through your podcast, through your work, people like us, we should help people, train them, teach them that this is what you can do and this is
Yeah.
what you should do,
Yeah.
or maybe give up the field of journalism and go into something where there's career growth, there are benefits, and there is a good, steady career progression where you're also respected by the organization you're bleeding for. हमारे लोग ना, majority of our people, it's very sad, Amar. We feel there's no way out.
Yeah.
So we're happy with whatever crap that's given to us.
Again, we're
Loveless
scared.
marriages,
Yeah.
toxic partnerships, toxic work job experiences.
Yeah.
We feel we are slaves to the system. Any kind of system. It's our mindset.
As if there's nothing outside of it.
Exactly.
मतलब like वही वाली बात आ जाती है ना. अगेन मेरा ख्याल है आई एम सो ग्लैड वी डिस्कस दैट इन द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द पॉडकास्ट, और हमने वहीं पे वी एस्टैब्लिश सम बेसिस के आगे सारी डिस्कशन की. और मेरा ख्याल है हम वापस वहीं पे जा रहे हैं बात पे कि दे आर सो स्केर्ड ऑन द इनसाइड कि हमें लगता है कि यार नहीं, अब हमने डरे रहने, एंड देयर इज नो अदर जॉब, देयर इज नो अदर प्रोफेशन, देयर आर नो अदर स्किल्स वी कैन टेक अप at a certain point in our lives. We just can't even learn more skills, नया knowledge नहीं ले सकते. So just we end up restricting ourselves.
We end up restricting ourselves again because it's safe.
Because it's safe. अच्छा, last question.
Yeah.
Do you मुझे असल में ये वाला question इसलिए पूछ रहा हूँ, and I do distinctly remember. So I did my bachelor's in communications and education from FC College University, and we had the pleasure of from Fawad Chaudhry, who is
Hmm.
presently working with PTI. But at that time, I think he was serving a different party, and he used to
Hmm.
have a show with Mubashir Luqman as well. I remember. तो मैंने
Hmm.
उनसे ये बात बड़े क्लियरली पूछी कि मतलब जो टीवी पे आप लोग कर रहे होते हैं या आपके साथ जो दूसरे एंकर्स हैं वो कह रहे हैं, डू यू थिंक दैट्स जर्नलिज्म? एंड
Hmm.
उन्होंने मेरा ख्याल है उस मेरे जवाब को तो गोलमोल कर दिया. आई डू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट फॉर हिम दो, लेकिन उन्होंने इस जवाब
Yeah.
को गोलमोल कर दिया. डू यू थिंक के जो हम देखते हैं एंकर्स को टीवी पे करते हुए, एंड व्हाट आई सी इज जस्ट mere fighting and nothing else. Do you think that's journalism?
It's a circus. It's not journalism. It's a complete circus, Amar. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I mean, you have politicians jumping for each other's throats, trying to kill
Yeah.
each other.
Huh.
You have the news bulletin when it's announced, you have these dhamakas going on
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
background for sound effects.
yeah.
The whole thing is a cartoon. It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon. बिल्कुल. मतलब मुझे तो वो
So
लगता है
people
वो
don't
होता है
watch
नहीं कि वो
action
जो
movies anymore. They
रेफरी है
tune
आपका,
into the
मतलब
news.
जर्नलिस्ट तो रेफरी बन गया आपका बीच में, मतलब देयर आर टू रेसलर्स हु यू आर मेकिंग फाइट और फाइट ईच अदर, और वो वही हो रहा है.
Yeah,
मेरे बीच में लगता तो नहीं कि हम
yeah,
कभी भी किसी चीज के एंड पे पहुंच पाते हैं.
exactly. And if you think about it, वो जो है ना Goswami, what's his full
अर्नब.
name?
अर्नब.
हाँ, Goswami. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening on the other side of the border too.
Yeah.
I think we're both in the same boat vis-a-vis the media. I mean, look at how he talks. The way he's shouting and screaming, it's hilarious, you
He's a
know?
joker
But
actually. I'd
he's
say
a
to him,
joker.
to his face, any day of the week.
It's hilarious. But imagine, I mean, imagine the average viewer, Amar, consuming nonsense like that.
Hmm,
Our
hmm,
TV channels,
hmm,
that side of the border.
hmm,
Imagine what it's doing to our mind. It's
hmm.
like zang lagane wali baat. Yeah.
मेरा ख्याल है वो हम किसी टाइम पे पढ़ा करते थे ना. ऐसे जब मजे की बात है, जब आप जर्नलिज्म की डिग्री कर रहे हो तो जो मुझे लगता है काफी सारे लोग जर्नलिज्म कर सकते हैं, और उसमें जरूरी नहीं कि हर वक्त आपको एक डिग्री की जरूरत हो. बट इफ यू रियली वांट टू
Yes.
अंडरस्टैंड कि किस तरह से
Hmm.
जर्नलिज्म इवॉल्व हुई एंड व्हाट योर ड्यूटीज आर और बाकी सारा कुछ, तो मुझे उसमें याद है कि एक टाइम पे आई एम फॉरगेटिंग द परसेंटेज ऑफ कोर्स, मगर ये था कि किसी भी चैनल में
Hmm.
10-15% या
Hmm.
20% जो है वो एजुकेशनल कंटेंट होना चाहिए. एंड वो
Hmm.
नजर नहीं, अब तो चलो नहीं आता, मगर जब मैं बड़ा हो रहा था या जब आप बड़े हो रहे थे तो उस टाइम पे पीटीवी पे वो होता था. एंड वी वर, I'd say कि
Hmm.
we were blessed to have been through those PTV stages यहाँ पे अभी ये चल रहा था. अब तो खैर शायद होता ही ना हो.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, now they don't really care. It's information is so skewed.
हम्म.
Fact checking to dur ki baat hai. It's
हाँ,
more like
हाँ.
visuals kya hai,
Visuals
sound
क्या है,
effects
be the
kya
first
hai,
one to report the
masala kya hai.
incident. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So then thank you so much, Sonia. It
Thank
was
you.
such a wonderful discussion, and I'm so glad that we could do it today. Or
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for all the insights that you shared. और मेरा ख्याल है कि जर्नलिज्म के साथ साथ पर्सनल ब्रांडिंग से बात करते करते we talked about emotional stuff as
Yeah.
well. Or I think maybe we should
Yeah.
have another session soon जहाँ पे हम थोड़ा सा
Done.
बाकी चीज को भी डिस्कस करते हैं as to why we behave the way we behave.
Let's do that. I'm in.
चलें, परफेक्ट, बिल्कुल सही. आई होप कि हम नेक्स्ट तब तक जो है अपने स्टूडियो में कर रहे होंगे इसको, इंशाल्लाह.
Inshallah, Amar. I think you're going to go very far because I can tell your intention, your niyat, you have a thinking mind, you have an empathetic mind, and you have a very broad-minded approach to things. So I think you're going to go very far.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you so much. इंशाल्लाह. और मेरे I hope कि I keep getting guests like yourself जिनके साथ ऐसी बात की भी जा सके.
Thank you so much, Amar.
Okay,
Thank
take
you.
care.